Right now at 6, dozens of Portland seniors forced out once, now being told they have to move again.
I've been over here 1 year, and I'm out in the streets after April.
Plus, a new grant to reimagine how one neighborhood combats crime.
We've got partners, we've got money, we're ready to go.
And watching the weather ahead of the Ring of Fire.
Looking through a telescope at the sun and seeing it yourself is just totally mind-blowing.
An update as Oregon prepares for the big show in the sky.
Thanks for joining us. I'm David Molko.
And I'm Laurel Porter. We begin with excitement building across parts of Oregon this evening with a Ring of Fire eclipse now just over 15 hours away. Let's get right to team coverage.
Meteorologist Joe Ranieri tracking what looks like an improving forecast. But first to Alma McCarty, already in the path of annularity in Eugene and getting ready for that show.
And we're really crossing our fingers here for the solar eclipse. We are, I've got my glasses, we picked out our spot, and now all we have to do is wait to see what happens tomorrow.
We are in the planetarium here. It's the Science Center.
Inside the Eugene Science Center,
What's not exciting?
a preview of Saturday morning's solar eclipse.
So you can see as we get closer to 9:18, the moon is ever so slightly going in front of the sun.
While it's interesting to see it from these seats, watching the eclipse on the lawn outside will make for a much more fascinating show.
Looking through a telescope at the sun and seeing it yourself is just totally mind-blowing. Something unique that we haven't seen in a while here.
That is, if we can see it.
I hope it is clearer, if not completely clear, but even a little bit of breakage in the clouds should be able to allow us to see the sun coming over the trees.
Peter Kukla with the Science Center says he's preparing for a couple hundred, not quite the crowd other parts of Oregon saw back in 2017 during the total solar eclipse.
The birds started singing, it was just like dusk.
Saturdays is an annular solar eclipse. In the path of annularity, expect to see a ring of fire.
I'm really excited. I understand why people travel around and follow these eclipses because it was very cool.
Although not as rare as the total eclipse she saw a few years back. Kayleen Reeve, who traveled here from Iowa, believes the chance to see this eclipse is well worth the trip.
My stepdaughter lives up in Portland. I always come and visit them, and I found out there was an eclipse, and Eugene was one of the spots, so I arranged my trip. So I was here for 3 days in October to see the eclipse.
Now, we haven't seen all that many people specifically coming to Eugene to see this eclipse. There wasn't really any traffic in town either, but I really can't speak for other parts of Oregon where there may be more people, where conditions are a little more favorable to the south and to the east. But the silver lining here, if we are able to see the eclipse and the clouds part, you're not going to have to fight crowds in order to see it. David, Laurel?
Well, thank you, Alma. We will hope for happy viewing. And let's take a look at another part of Oregon. Not looking so great there in Newport.
Yeah, that's also is in the path of annularity there on the coast. And Joe, it's looking gloomy and rainy and overcast. And I was going to put these on anyway, but
because you might go down to Eugene to check it out.
I might take a trip down there.
Might be worth it.
Hey, that's a good look.
Is it going to get better? I guess
it will get better in pockets. There could be pockets throughout parts of the valley, of course, where Alma is at, that will be seeing a good chance of the eclipse tomorrow morning. Again, this starts a little after 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Peak will be just after 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. So here's a few spots that I would avoid and a few spots that we would try to go to if you have the time and you can still make it out. So again, the solar eclipse peak will be just a little after 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Overcast along the Oregon coast. That's one place where I would avoid going if you're hoping to check it out because you're not going to be seeing much. There's also a chance to see some low clouds and some scattered showers. There will be some clearing in the valley, and that includes parts of the Eugene area as well. East of the Cascades, partly cloudy skies, but again, there will be pockets where it's going to be mainly clear tomorrow morning. So the best chance, though, will be along the southeast side of the state. I have a couple of models I want to bring in. The first is Futurecast. So first, we'll go through tonight. We'll see some scattered showers. Here we are, 6:30, 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. A little bit of some clearing throughout parts of the central and southern Willamette Valley. As we look at another model, this is the European model, shows 9:15. Start to see a little bit more of some clearing and some thinner clouds throughout parts of the valley. And coming up in my detailed forecast, I'll talk more about what you can expect to see after the eclipse and what you can expect to see heading into the weekend as well.
All right, a little bit of optimism there. Thank you, Joe. If you don't want to try your chances to the south or east, don't worry, we have you covered. You can watch the Ring of Fire live on KGW.com or on KGW+. Our coverage, of course, begins on sunrise, a live stream of the big show in the sky starting just before 9 tomorrow morning.
Portland police have released more information about the man who was killed in Wednesday's apparent road rage shooting in downtown Portland. Police say the victim, 47-year-old Ryan Martin of Southwest Washington, was unarmed when he got out of his truck and approached a car partially blocking the street at 10th and Alder. According to an arrest affidavit, the driver of the car, 47-year-old Jeffrey Hammond of Portland, allegedly shot Martin in the chest and left him to die while he tried to reload his gun to fire again. Moments later, Hammond allegedly shot a passerby who was recording the incident on his phone. Hammond was arraigned yesterday on murder and attempted murder charges. The second victim, identified in court documents as Sam Gomez of Arizona, was in town to speak at the National Organization of Minority Architects conference at the downtown Hilton. He remains in the hospital and is expected to survive.
Well, let's get to your headlines now, starting in Clackamas, where a driver is accused of hitting a child, leaving the scene, then getting into another crash. Police say this all began on Southeast 82nd Drive near Tiffany Court yesterday morning. Authorities say the driver ran over a child's feet, and the victim's older sibling may have saved them by pulling them out of the way. That child was treated at the scene. Police say the hit-and-run driver then got into a head-on crash at Jennifer and Evelyn Streets. The driver died in the hospital. Deputies believe they may have been intoxicated. The driver of the second car survived but has serious injuries.
The pastor of a former Beaverton church accused of sex abuse against underage girls in his congregation made his first court appearance this morning. 39-year-old Christopher Pruitt pleaded not guilty today to multiple counts. Police say the alleged abuse of two girls happened while Pruitt was pastoring Our Father's House Ministries Church, which he operated out of his home in Beaverton before moving to North Portland. Detectives believe there may be more victims. Pruitt is due back in court next week.
Kaiser Permanente and the unions representing tens of thousands of workers nationwide have now reached a tentative deal. According to the unions, the 4-year deal includes wage increases and expands job training. Employees now have to vote to ratify it. It's important to note a group of local Kaiser pharmacy workers are still on strike and negotiating separately from the national unions. We'll hear from a local Kaiser employee to get his take on this agreement coming up at 6:30 on The Story.
Meantime, more than 1,300 local Peace Health workers will be going on strike on October 23rd. Service, maintenance, and tech workers at Peace Health Southwest in Vancouver and lab professionals at Peace Health St. John and Longview voted to authorize a strike on Monday. They say they've been negotiating over their union contract for months now. Issues include pay and staffing shortages.
A group of Portland seniors hoping to return home after being forced out by a disease outbreak are now being forced to move again.
Thomas Schultz is in the newsroom with an update. Thomas?
Yeah, Laurel and David, they were forced to leave the Rosemont Court Apartments due to an outbreak of Legionnaire's disease, which is a severe form of pneumonia contracted through bacteria in water. So they were dispersed to different apartments all around the city, always planning to return back home.
These are all the things from Rosemont when I lived there, that when I moved here, I says, I'll just leave them in here for now.
Marilyn Hassan lived at Rosemont Court for a dozen years. Though she's been here at the Perch PDX for more than a year,
I'm not going to put anything on my walls.
She never fully unpacked.
Christmas decorations, family photos.
She and dozens of others were supposed to move back to Rosemont next year, though recently Hassan learned that wouldn't happen.
Rosemont dropped the ball.
Rosemont is not going to reopen. In 2021, Multnomah County health officials urged residents to leave Rosemont after concerns that the water in the building was causing Legionnaire's disease. A recent letter to tenants says it was deemed too expensive to remodel the building.
I mean, this has been very upsetting.
Now,
we need help.
Searching for a new, affordable apartment. Hassan's lease and dozens of others are up in 6 months. And tenants say many senior living apartments have a 3-year wait list. The Urban League and Northwest Housing Alternatives are trying to help. They covered higher rent costs at other apartments when tenants were forced to leave Rosemont. Though next spring, that funding dries up. KGW spoke with Hassan last year when she was moving out of Rosemont. Even then, she was worried for the future.
Or what happens if they're not done in 24 months? Who's going to pay my rent? Am I going to end up moving into a tent?
In a statement, Northwest Housing Alternatives says they're still looking for funding to make Rosemont operational and hope residents continue to work with them to find new housing.
They say, well, we'll do something. We don't know. They're trying to find money. Do you know how unnerving that feels? You got to find some money. I got 6 months to start looking for a place.
6 months, and she and others are worried it may not be enough time.
I've been over here 1 year, and now I'm out in the streets.
Out of a home without the money or the help to find one like her Rosemont apartment that she still can't go back to. David, Laurel.
It is such an upsetting story, and we hope help is on the way. Thank you, Thomas. And coming up on the story, a look into a large homeless camp on the edge of Old Town that's now being cleared.
You know, some know this as the pit, and this week city crews and a biohazard team removed dozens of tents and debris. Outreach workers say 19 of the people camping there moved into the mass-sanctioned camp in southeast Portland. Here's how a neighbor reacted.
They finally got their eviction notice, thank God. Thought it was never gonna happen. We are finally getting our neighborhood back.
And it turns out there are now security guards on site. Blair Best talks to those forced to move and asks the guards what they're up to. It's just ahead at 6:30 on The Story.